Hello everyone, my name is Armia, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. We are taking a look at some history stuff, and specifically today, the oversimplified video about Prohibition. I mean, being a bartender, obviously Prohibition has a lot of stuff related to the origins of bars, especially in America, origin of the cocktail, all of that stuff, which we're gonna get into, don't worry. But yeah, I honestly have just been wanting to do some other stuff than World of Darkness. So like, I was thinking, hey, you know, history would be fun. Let's take a look at like what I can do with history. So here we are. Yeah, that's this. Let's just get right into it.
Good morning, honey. What's for breakfast? The usual. 2 caskets of rum, a mug of hard cider, and a full bottle of wine. Oh boy! Oh, I'm running late. I'll have to take it with me. Don't forget your lunch. It's a 6-pack of beer, a flask of whiskey, 6 shots of tequila, and as a special treat, a banana. Oh, gee whiz.
Now, they are obviously exaggerating, but honestly, this is not that exaggerated. There was a real problem in the the end of the 19th century. Prohibition did not come about for no reason, right? Like it was kind of an extreme reaction to everyone is constantly drunk. We need to chill out. Which, yeah, fair enough, frankly. Also, kind of funnily, the banana relates a little bit to the later, like the 1960s with like the banana republics and everything, which I'm not going to get into at the moment, but it is a very interesting and kind of dark story as well, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Salmonella has a really good video on the banana republics, which honestly, I should do a reaction to on as well.
I'm gonna be smashed today.
You are.
Day of operating sharp, dangerous farm equipment. I believe this is an acceptable way to live. God bless America. Okay, gotta go. I love my life.
Oh, love that art. Very nice.
America, the land of beautiful strip malls, top class and wonderful urban sprawl. Ah, yes, beautiful America. But what's the most American thing you can think of? The Statue of Liberty? Mount Rushmore? A crazy lady in a mobility scooter yelling at
The most American thing I can think of is probably deep fried butter. I feel like I feel like that's just like very fitting to like the American image, you know what I mean? Like deep fried butter, or like America, yeah, that kind of want Also, no America slander in the comments, please. I know some of you are tempted. Do not. I want to keep this a nice space.
a pigeon? Well, what if I told you the answer is alcohol? That's right. When the Puritans arrived on America's shores, they brought a ship packed with beer. George Washington provided his men with a daily cup of whiskey.
Yep,
Jackson's
true.
inauguration party left the White House so trashed that everybody had to be ordered outside. Frederick Douglass said whiskey made him feel like a president. Me too, Frederick. Me too. Americans drink at breakfast. Doctors prescribed their patients hard liquor. In the 19th century, Americans drank 3 times as much as their modern-day counterparts. That's a lot of whiskey. Hey, Jerry, how's that report coming along? Already done, sir. I've also organized your paperwork, watered your flowers, and been a father figure to your children. Wait a minute. What's that smell? Have you been drinking at work? No, sir, I would never. Well, why not? Everyone else is doing it, but I got all my work done.
Everyone was smoking and everyone was drinking. That was the fashion at the time. Smoking especially became actually a lot more prevalent during and after Prohibition as a way for smokers to, for drinkers to handle the lack of alcohol.
You're fired! Americans drink at work. They drink at barn raisings, baptisms, and public hangings. Heavy drinking was so normal that it was as American.
Okay, I do know. That is a nice piece of art, I have to admit. It's pretty funny.
As apple pie.
Okay, I have to admit also, it is kind of funny how the same guys are in the crowd, just, you know, just hanging out.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ron, and I'm an alcoholic. Get over yourself, Ron. We're all alcoholics. But more and more Americans began to wonder whether all of this truly was a normal way to live. Were Americans drinking, perhaps, a little too much? Well, one group in particular thought the answer to that was yes. You know them, you love them. Woman.
Not just women, but like it was actually more widespread. Women were the originators for sure, and like a very big part of the prohibitionist movement, and that was actually also a very big part of the emancipationist movement for women, which yeah, like at the time, very like a progressive focus. So yeah.
Hang on. We just want to talk. Women talking in public? That's outrageous. Come on, Fred. You've got 2 kids and a wife at home. Yet here you are spending your entire paycheck on booze. And you, Dr. Spanky, you were on the
Dr.
cusp of
Spanky?
discovering time travel. But what did you discover instead? The sweet, sweet joys of whiskey. That's right. Alcohol. It's destroying our families, our jobs, and our homes. She's right. She's right. You know. Hang on, men. Don't let them get to you. This saloon is our safe space where our wives and children can't annoy us with reality, where we're free to be real men. All right. He's right. I am a man. And what does it real men do? Take care of their families. I don't know what she's talking about. Do you take care of your family? No. We drink beer, we shoot guns, and we mud wrestle.
Honestly, this reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2, in the mission where you like get kicked out and you're like fighting a guy in the mud. That's a good mission. Fun time as well.
As America's heavy drinking ruined more and more lives, moral resistance began to arise, and women were at the forefront, taking matters into their own hands at a time when women doing just about anything was shocking.
Though honestly, there were a lot of other groups as well that like focused on less or complete complete removal of drinking. There was a lot of stuff where like they tried to give alternatives to drinking as well. Smoking, for example, or drugs, which was also not ideal. But you know, it had a different connotation back then.
Enough of being victim to their husband's heavy drinking, and they were going to do something unprecedented. You're going to what? I'm going to protest. Oh, sweetie. Women can't protest.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Ohio, before spreading nationwide, women began a crusade against alcohol. They marched through
Yep,
towns
the
and
Women's
cities,
Crusade.
hymns, gathering outside saloons, and praying on their knees. Women praying was so terrifying that in some towns, schools were shut and business stagnated. On one occasion, firemen were called out to hose down the dangerous praying women. On another, the owner of a beer garden reportedly held a cannon outside and threatened to reduce the savage women to dust.
Own a musket for home defense, because that's what the founding fathers intended.
Nevertheless, they persisted. They formed the WCTU in 1874.
I have to admit, I love the mental image of somebody putting out a cannon from like their basement or whatever. Just, they just have it there. It's very American.
They organized. They set up homes for inebriate women. They installed water fountains in public parks. They wrote textbooks for school children that contained some interesting claims about drinking alcohol. Here's little Timmy. Uh-oh. Looks like Timmy's gonna have his first drink. He's taking a small sip of whiskey, and Timmy has spontaneously combusted. The end. The woman's efforts weren't in vain.
Yeah, sometimes the claims got a bit too wild, for sure.
In small towns across America, drugstores agreed to stop fulfilling prescriptions for alcohol. Men committed themselves to giving up drink. Inspired by the women's moral fervor, saloon owners
Excuse me.
The Women's Crusade and other temperance movements were forcing people to reconsider alcohol's role in society, and more people began to side with the growing temperance movement. Many states had even begun enacting their own dry laws that restricted the sale and use of alcohol. One of them was Kansas, where alcohol had been outlawed since 1881. Despite this, many illegal saloons remained open, and authorities had done just about nothing to stop them. One woman, disgusted by what she saw, decided she would take the law into her own hands. And not just any woman.
Oh.
Terrifying. Sweet old lady named Carrie Nation.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this lady. This lady's awesome.
With her trusty hatchet and a bag of what she called smashers, she traveled from town to town visiting saloons. But she wasn't there to get smashed. She was there to smash. The men could do nothing but cower as sweet little Carrie hulked out and tore the place to shreds. She went to Kiowa.
So, a nice detail perhaps is that she didn't start using the hatchet until after her husband went. He said something along the lines of if you're gonna be destroying everything, why not use a hatchet? And she reportedly responded as, That's the most useful thing you've said to me since I married you. Like, she was kind of a savage. I kind of love her.
And smashy smashed. Wichita, smashy smash. Topeka, smashy smash. On a couple of occasions, she was arrested, but each time they were like, okay, Carrie, we're gonna let you go so long as you promise to be a good girl and not smash up any more saloons, okay? Screw you, pig! Yeah, I think she's gonna be all right.
Grandma Punk, by the way, is just a really cool thing. And you know what? I want to see more old punk in stuff like cyberpunk. I want to see like a 50-year-old punker still doing punk stuff, sort of stuff. There's not enough old punk in media. Give me more old punk.
Smash, smash, smash. Carrie's tactics shocked the other members of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. She assured them, and this is a quote, ladies, you do not know how much joy you will have until you smash, smash, smash.
I love that picture, by the way. It's such a good picture of her. She looks so grumpy. I love it. You guys wonder if she's like the kind of grandma where she's super strict, or the kind of grandma where she like feeds you way too much? Maybe both. I could see that.
Carrie became a household name, and she hoped her unusual tactics would spread across the country. But unfortunately, many of the women's movements eventually slowed down. Why? Well, because of this kind of thing. Thelma, I ripped my pants again. Ugh, well, you'll have to sew them yourself because I'm going out protesting. What? I don't know how to sew. What if I burn the house down and get eaten by alligators? Don't be stupid, Mitch. Look, I've got to go. Call me stupid? She's the one who's stupid. Hey, Thelma! Look who's stupid now! See,
obviously exaggerated, but it's actually absolutely true. Like, a lot of women had to go back to their house duties and thus couldn't spend as much time protesting.
Women were out protesting. There was nobody to do the cooking and cleaning and being seen and not heard, and they gradually had to return to their duties at home. But where the women had got the ball rolling, a new movement was about to take that ball all the way to Washington, D.C. I'm talking about the Anti-Saloon League. The Anti-Saloon League was a political pressure group run by a very sweet-looking old man. But don't let that deceive you.
Oh, Wayne. I'm familiar with you.
This guy was an evil genius. While the women's movements were interested in a whole range of issues, Wayne Wheeler and the Anti-Saloon League only cared about enemy number one, Mr. Al Capone. And as a result, they were extremely effective. They were able to exploit the fears of the American people. And I mean everyone's fears. Here's how they did it. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Liberal Progressive Rally. Why don't you introduce yourself? Well, I'm Patty, and I'm an immigrant from Ireland. And tell me, Patty, do you drink? Oh, yes. I drink a lot. See, folks, people like Patty come here looking for a better life, only to end up drunk in the gutter. Don't worry, sir. We're gonna help you. Hey, man, you're doing great. I just need you for one more thing. Hey, Christian conservatives. This is Patty. He's a dirty Catholic Irish immigrant who's come to destroy America with his alcohol-fueled debauchery. Workers were.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty accurate. He was a very shrewd political operator, but he was also very, very, very dirty.
Alcohol was a capitalist ploy to keep them subjugated. Factory owners were told alcohol was making their irresponsible workers lazy. The black community was warned alcohol was hindering its progress, while racists were warned alcohol would turn black men into brutes. In one of the most confusing eras of American politics, totally opposing groups found themselves agreeing on at least one thing. Alcohol was bad.
Yeah.
The Anti-Saloon League also made great use of propaganda, something prohibitionists have been doing for decades. Take this specimen, for example, that warns what will happen to you if you start drinking. Let's see. First you take a drink, you get a little rowdy, okay. You make some new friends, nice. Then you become homeless. You turn to crime, and...
Yeah?
But the most effective tactic
Yeah, and honestly, like, the effectiveness of this sort of thing is because they can focus on a single issue and get everyone to rally behind that one issue, right? That catapults it flattens the message in a lot of ways, and I think that's really
Wheeler
interesting.
used to force prohibition on America was pressure politics. In any election he could, Wheeler
Hmm.
very successfully rounded up support against any politician who was in favor of alcohol.
Yep.
In Ohio alone, he had 70 state representatives and the popular Republican governor ousted from office and replaced with prohibitionists. Suddenly, every politician in America was afraid of Wayne Wheeler.
Yeah.
Even those who enjoyed alcohol in private began pretending to be against it in public. Alcohol is delicious. Malicious. Sorry, Wayne. I'm really drunk right now. Then it really hit the fan in 1917, when America found itself fighting in the First World War against Germany. Anti-German sentiment exploded. Sauerkraut became Liberty Cabbage. German measles became Liberty Measles. And Dachshunds became the embodiment of evil. See, America? You've always been this way. The biggest brewers in America.
Yeah, that's true. America always has been this way. But about that Germany thing, actually, funny thing, the British had a similar thing happen where so for those who don't know, the royal family actually has German roots, but they renamed themselves during World War One because the House of Saxe-Gothenburg doesn't sound as British as the House of Windsor. That's literally it. That's it. It was just a PR campaign. They were family with the Kaiser and with the Russian Tsar.
Were German, and Wheeler saw to it that drinking alcohol became akin to pro-German treason. The German brewers desperately tried to fight back, creating their own propaganda, presenting beer as a healthy beverage, one that you could even give to your kids. As you can imagine, it didn't go down well. President Wilson instituted some temporary wartime prohibition measures to save grain for food, and with many in the country now in support of prohibition, all that was left was to make it law. One problem was that taxes on alcohol made up nearly 40% of the US government's annual revenue. And the government wasn't just about to give that up. No problem. The Anti-Saloon League helped lobby for the creation of a new income tax on the American people. And just like that, the government was no longer reliant on alcohol. Prohibition was finally introduced to Congress in 1913. Not just
Pretty crazy if you think about it, how swiftly all of this happened. Obviously, part of it is like a confluence of different situations, but yeah.
just as a law, but a constitutional amendment. In 1917, as the House held their final vote on the Prohibition Amendment, Wheeler was watching from the gallery. You spineless cowards. I know half of you drink, yet here you are bowing down to Ned Flanders up there. Look at him like he's some kind of Caesar. Ugh, don't be so dramatic. I obviously don't think I'm Caesar. Now release the lion.
Okay, funny, but like more accurate than you would think, honestly, considering that the guy did kind of consider himself a bit of a ruler in a way, the true power behind the crown sort of thing. Should definitely look up some info on Wayne.
In the end, Prohibition passed the House easily, 282 votes to 128, and the states ratified the new amendment by 1919. America, a nation obsessed with liberty and freedom, had just voluntarily given up its private right to choose whether or not to drink alcohol. We did it, folks.
I mean, okay. I don't really like that framing, personally. Because, like, yeah, I guess that's not incorrect, but it's also one of those things where, like, framing it like that is a little unfair, because to defend prohibition a little bit, and this might sound weird, as we saw in the beginning, alcohol was a real problem. Like drinking was a real problem in America. So while I don't think prohibition was a good idea, I do understand why people wanted it, because yeah, they wanted to reduce the amount of drunk people on the street, quite frankly. And I don't think that's a bad thing inherently. It's just that the way they went about it was very absolutist, you know?
Everything. America will be perfect forever. You just dissolved America's 5th largest industry and lost tens of thousands of jobs for us immigrants. No, you idiot. You don't get it. We helped you, idiot. Ugh, I could really go for a beer. Oh, no. Immediately after Prohibition went into effect, alcohol consumption in America decreased as Americans followed the law and tried not drinking. Man, if we're gonna be law-abiding good boys, we need something else to fill the dark, lonely void that delicious beer once did. Well, how about we crack open a nice cold can of water? Hell yeah. Toss it over. Nah, this isn't doing it for me. let's try knitting. This isn't filling the dark void at all. Want to play some kites? Ah, screw it. Let's go get some illegal beer. While it seemed like many Americans supported Prohibition, after the law went into effect, it seemed like just as many Americans intended to keep on drinking. And they would...
It's one of those things, of course, like once you make it illegal at that point, the problem becomes that everyone wants to taste the forbidden fruit, sort of deal.
to find a variety of ways to break the new law. Pretty soon after the new law went into effect, the failures of Prohibition were already beginning to rear their ugly heads. For
Oh,
starters,
God.
the details of the new Prohibition law, written by none other than Wayne Wheeler himself, turned out to be more draconian than expected. Many Prohibition supporters only wanted to outlaw hard liquor and hoped beer would remain legal, but the Volts...
Yeah, especially because if you look at the history, beer was a very common drink, right? Anybody who's familiar at all with the medieval period will tell you, like, beer was drunk almost as commonly as water, and oftentimes as a replacement for water, if no, like the nice water was available, basically. Though I will say, I do think that's a little bit overstated sometimes. It's not like they only drank beer in the medieval period either. It's just a very common drink back then. And that stayed the case for pretty much, I mean, it's still the case, let's be honest. Like, beer is still an incredibly common drink to drink, so yeah. Although, interestingly, and I don't know if you guys know this, beer consumption has gone down generation by generation ever since the start of the 20th century, I believe. It might have peaked a little bit in the 1920s and then gone down. I need to read up on that again. I remember reading a bunch of statistics on it. I'm such a nerd, good lord.
That Act outlawed anything over... That would make Liberty Cabbage illegal. Secondly, the new law was full of loopholes that Americans very quickly began to exploit. For example, while the sale and manufacture of liquor was illegal, drinking it wasn't. And you could also keep any alcohol you had before the law went into effect. So many private clubs hoarded huge amounts of alcohol that saw them through the entire Prohibition period. Whiskey intended for medicinal purposes was also allowed, and doctors basically became bartenders. It looked as though a full-on epidemic had broken out, as there was a...
It is pretty funny that whiskey for medicinal purposes was allowed, and then the doctors just started writing out, like, here you go, free whiskey, like... Well, not free, but you get me.
Sacramental wines used by churches and synagogues were also permitted. Orders for communion wine suspiciously skyrocketed by millions of gallons. And as rabbis had access to religious wine, suddenly everyone was becoming a rabbi. You had Rabbi Pat O'Leary, Rabbi LL Cool J, Rabbi Fluffy. But don't worry, I'm sure all these definitely legitimate religious figures couldn't possibly be selling wine in the back alley after mass.
Yeah, of course not.
Definitely nothing strange going on here. New products also hit the shelves in stores, such as Vine Glow, a brick of dehydrated grape juice.
This is one of my favorite things about Prohibition. I'm sure he's about to explain it, so let's do that first.
Not alcoholic, and therefore perfectly legal. But the packaging did contain a strangely specific warning. After dissolving the brick in a gallon of water, do not place the liquid in a jug in the cupboard for 20 days, because then it would turn into wine.
That is pretty accurate to how it actually was, and it's honestly one of my favorite things. I'm a huge fan of like malicious compliance. I think it's very funny. Like, yeah, I'm following the law. Technically. Fun.
Take 1,000. Yes, sir. Now,
I'm very giggly today.
think back for me, if you will, to the year 2005. You're the coolest kid around, and you convince your parents to rent the greatest movie of all time from your local Blockbuster. But the movie starts with a strange message. Not downloading a car?
Fun fact about that, by the way. I don't actually know if this is true, but I've heard that that particular commercial's music was actually pirated, which would... I want that to be true so badly. I don't know if it is, but I really want it to be true.
You immediately disregard that and hop on Kazaa to download the greatest song of all time, and in the process, drain your dad's bank account with copious amounts of ransomware. You were breaking the law, you bad boy or girl, but did anyone come to arrest you? No. That's my point. If no one's enforcing a law, while everyone's breaking it, is it really a law? And so it was with Prohibition.
I think this is a really interesting phenomenon, by the way, just generally, like, a law that's never enforced and that people break all the time. At that point, like, is it like he asks, like, is that even still a law? Like, is there a point to it existing? And I'm leaning no, but yeah, I think it's interesting.
The conservative-led governments of the decade were also the kind of people who believed in small government spending. So they'd passed a law that would be extremely difficult to enforce, but also didn't want to spend any of the money required to enforce it. The newly created Bureau of Prohibition only had 1,500 agents to cover the entire country. That's one agent for every 70,666 Americans.
One of my favorite things is, I think it's in Mafia that like one of these guys shows up and he's kind of a bumbling buffoon.
Massive country with 12,000 miles of coastline and one gigantic land border with Canada. Good luck, schmuckos. And all these clever little loopholes people were using to score illegal booze were only just the beginning. America was about to devolve into alcohol-fueled criminal chaos. By outlawing it, Prohibition had made alcohol a precious commodity, and millions of Americans would become outlaws as they found a variety of ways to score illegal booze. For example, many Americans began making their own liquor. Stills from making moonshine were found by Prohibition agents from the hills of Kentucky and the caves of Arizona to parking lots in major cities, and even in the homes of Prohibition-supporting politicians. Oh, come on now, fellas. I voted for Prohibition. I'm not gonna have an illegal still. What's this? That's my son, Freddy. Say hi, Freddy. Sir, this is obviously an illegal still. How dare you? Hey, what's this in the bathtub? That's bath water. Why does it taste like alcohol? Here's a better question. Why are you tasting my bath water? Weirdo. Come on, Freddy. Let's get away from these perverts. To discourage moonshine.
Okay, I have to say, I really enjoy Oversimplified's humor. There's something about it that I quite like. Obviously, he's not gonna get into like the weeds of the topic in like half an hour, right? Although, admittedly, Prohibition, I think you can cover pretty decently in half an hour. You can get the gist of it, at least, in half an hour. So, yeah, like, pretty good.
The government began adding extra toxins to many of the products moonshiners were using, which resulted in many cases of severe illness and death. But alcohol wasn't just being made at home. Along America's vast coastlines, rum runners smuggled alcohol into the country by sea. A floating supermarket known as Rum Row extended along the East Coast just beyond America's maritime limit, and bootleggers frequently sailed out in small boats to pick up shipments of booze. These bootleggers could then be found selling their illegal products everywhere, even in the holes of Congress. Wow, Pop. One day, I want to work here. Well, son, if you work hard and never give up, one day even you could be a massive hypocrite. Was known to serve as cabinet bootlegged whiskey, and some bootleggers were so successful, they became bazillionaires, such as Roy Olmsted, an ex-cop who became one of the biggest employers in the Seattle area from smuggling booze.
Famous guy, yeah.
All of his whiskey came from Canada. Yuck. All of this criminality was being made...
What do you mean, yuck? Canadian whiskey is just fine. Maybe not like the best whiskey out there, but it's fine. Come on now.
Possible by copious amounts of corruption. Across the country, armies of government officials were persuaded to turn a blind eye. Bootleggers became so rich, it was no problem to stuff a couple $1,000s into the front pocket of the police chief, or the mayor, or their disapproving mother. And some cops were getting almost as rich as the bootleggers. All right.
Well, now we're gonna get to speakeasies. I assume we're gonna touch on speakeasies as well.
Right, men, everyone gather in. I've received word that one of you has been taking bribes from bootleggers. Any ideas who? Kevin, perhaps. Got any thoughts? No, sir. Many police officers came from the same communities that drank a lot, and they weren't about to arrest their own granddads for knocking back some homemade gin. But all this isn't to say there was no enforcement. Plenty of government officials were doing...
Funnily enough, this kind of stuff is why, when you go to Roman times, for example, people who joined the Roman legions from, say, the British Isles, or what would become the British Isles, were often deployed to a different part of the empire, say Gaul, or even further away, like Africa. So they wouldn't have any qualms in like enforcing the law. Because obviously, it's a lot easier to enforce the law if you don't know the people you're enforcing them against, right? So, yeah.
Doing their best to enforce the new laws, and some unlucky individuals received very harsh penalties, such as a Michigan mother who was sentenced to life in prison for small-scale moonshining. Cases like these were widely reported in the media, and only served to make Prohibition even more unpopular. But not just that, the media also loved to cover the exploits of the most famous bootleggers, turning them into national icons.
Are we about to talk about Al Capone?
biggest bootleggers was a man named George Remus.
Ah, okay, never mind.
Lawyer. He watched as his bootlegger clients paid off enormous fines like it was nothing and proclaimed bootlegging's the business for me. But unlike most bootleggers, Remus had big brain, and he came up with a pretty clever system. See, there were millions of gallons of liquor.
So I'm actually not familiar with Remus. This is not somebody I know. Might have missed him when I was reading up on Prohibition.
Produced before Prohibition that were sitting in distillery warehouses, and it could only be sold with government permission to drug companies. So Remus set up his own drug company and bought all the liquor. Then he set up his own transport company to transport the liquor. And then he would send his own men out with guns to intercept his own transport. And this would happen. Hey man, this is a stick-up. Oh no, please don't hurt me. I won't hesitate to shoot. Please, I have a wife and kids. Hand over all the whiskey, fatty. Hey! Fatty isn't in the script, you jerk! After stealing all the whiskey...
Okay, that's pretty good. And yeah, actually, that's actually really clever.
from himself, he could then sell it for big bucks. The perfect crime. Unfortunately, Remus was eventually caught by a goody two-shoes Prohibition director in Indiana who wouldn't take Remus's bribes, and the government found Remus guilty of violating the Volstead Act 3,000 times. For 2 years, as Remus sat in prison, his wife promised...
I think it's very interesting that people say, like, unfortunately he was caught, which... I mean, he was a criminal. I realize Prohibition is, like, a bit draconian, but it's also one of those things where, like, guy was running a crime syndicate. I'm gonna bet there was some violence involved, you know? Like, I think it's also important to not glorify that sort of thing, either.
...to take care of all of his money. And by take care of his money, she meant have an affair with a Prohibition agent, sell off everything Remus owned, and file for divorce. When
Admittedly, that is kind of funny.
Remus finally got out and...
Like, poor guy, but also...
Big fancy mansion empty with his wife gone, he reportedly broke down in tears.
Aww,
Later,
okay.
during their divorce trial, he spotted his wife in a car in Cincinnati. Remus hopped in a cab and asked the driver to run her off the road. The driver was like, okay. Then Remus got out of the cab and shot his wife dead.
Jesus Christ, okay.
He immediately handed himself into the police, and his next trial, this time for murder, became a national sensation. Remus defended himself, claiming insanity, occasionally carrying out skillful questioning, occasionally crying in the corner. But the nation felt bad for him. His wife had screwed him over, and so when after just 9...
I mean... I guess kind of, but also... Women during this period weren't really allowed to work, I don't think. This is still before, like, World War II. And also, you know, he did kill the woman. Like, I can understand being mad at her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pretend like she's an angel. But killing her, you know, that's still murder, bub. Like...
19 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned and declared him not guilty. The court erupted into celebration. And just to remind you, this guy bluntly admitted to murdering his wife. The American justice system. Mwah. As alcohol poured into the nation, a lot of it was going to a new type of drinking establishment that had been booming in popularity. A secret drinking establishment. So secret that from the outside they often looked like ordinary shops or homes. So secret that you usually needed a password to get in. So secret that everybody knew about them. Speakeasies.
Yeah, baby. Speakeasies. Speakeasies are super cool. I love them. I mean, even the bar to some extent is inspired by these because, I mean, it's such a cool vibe, right? Like if you think of the Roaring Twenties, what do you think of? You think of people dancing swing in like a bar. Well, these are the bars, so you know.
The party went all night long. Scantily clad flappers, snake ladies, jazz. It was a roaring time to be alive.
Yeah, like jazz was like a kind of like a pearl clutching kind of stuff. It's kind of like how rock was in the 60s or metal later on. It's kind of interesting how that kept happening with genres, etc.
Some publications even posted reviews of these illegal clubs, and bribes galore kept the party going. It seemed like half the police officers and federal agents in cities like New York were receiving kickbacks from speakeasy owners. Hey, what the Kevin Costner is going on here? Officer O'Hannity, taking bribes? Why am I not surprised? Prohibition Director Simmons? For shame. Mom? What would Dad say? Ask him yourself. Dad would say, quit being such a wet blanket and let Daddy earn his tips.
Yeah, let Daddy earn his tips. Get out of here.
Anytime a speakeasy was shut down by authorities, it seemed like 3 more would just pop up elsewhere. And some neighborhoods were so full of them that one resident began hanging a sign to try to keep partygoers from constantly knocking on her door. It really seemed like the new laws regarding alcohol, in some places, were simply being ignored. And one Prohibition agent who traveled the country liked to see which city was the most defiant by timing how long it took for him to be offered a beer after he arrived. His winner? New Orleans, where a cab driver offered him a drink after just 35 seconds.
That's amazing.
Bravo! Many voices in Congress were already...
I'm a little sad we don't get more into speakeasies because culturally, speakeasies are very interesting. They are a way where, like, a lot of people got to mingle that otherwise wouldn't have. Like, you would find all walks of life here, right? Like, the speakeasies are the places where you would find the absolute highest of high power and the lowest of low, and everything in between. And you would find jazz, like mentioned. You would find, frankly, nudity, which, keep in mind, this is the 1920s. Like, nudity was very much not something that you would see just generally, like out and about.
Out against Prohibition and its failures. To display how ridiculous the
Like
whole
swing.
thing was, one Republican congressman gathered the media to all come and watch him drink a homemade beer. When he asked a passing police officer if he'd like to arrest him, the officer said no. Hey Wayne, is all this what you had in mind? I thought we were gonna make the country better, but it almost seems like it's worse. What do you mean? Alcohol consumption is down. Well, that may be true in your small town world, but it says here drinking in some areas is up, as are arrests for public intoxication, drunk driving, and incidents of liver cirrhosis. The general chaos has turned America into a nation of criminals with no respect for the law, and all these attempts at enforcement are just costing the economy valuable money and eating up judicial time and resources. Release the lines. The social change.
Yeah, like it was a real so it's one of those things. I think Prohibition is interesting because, again, like I mentioned, it was addressing a real problem, right? They wanted to address a real problem. Just the way they went about it was so draconian that it just didn't work.
And corruption that Wheeler and the Anti-Saloon League had been so eager to prevent, in the cities at least, was surging. See, when something's legal, you can usually regulate and control it. Make that thing illegal, and often anything becomes fair game. Legal drinking.
That's the general argument against for legalizing like pretty much any given drug or alcohol. Where like if it's legal, at the very least you can like control it in some way.
Gone. Mandatory closing hours for clubs and bars. Gone. Other unspoken sociocultural rules surrounding alcohol. Gone, gone, gone.
Yeah, and those social-cultural rules, we might be getting into it now, which, as I mentioned, the fact like you see like a multicultural crowd here, a multi-ethnic crowd, that was not a thing in the 1920s.
Speakeasies, different genders and ethnicities were beginning to mingle in a way.
There it is, yeah.
The Roaring Twenties saw a monumental shift in culture, not least of all because now men and women could flirt in public without being damned for eternity. An outraged Wayne.
Yeah, and also just the fact that, you know, women got to, like, you know, let loose. That, again, super rare.
Wheeler did his best to make sure that anyone breaking the law was punished. He had even stricter legislation put in place in New York. But all this did was clog up the justice system with petty drinking violations, and judges began letting everyone off with light fines, so the judges could get back to dealing with things that actually mattered. You know, things like murder. And there was plenty of murder, because and moonshiners were one thing, but Prohibition had given another kind of criminal an opportunity to make a fortune. Mobsters and gangsters.
Now we're talking about Al Capone.
Big news. Hey, Fat Joey. What's up? I just got word from Fat Louie here that the government's outlawing alcohol. You know what that means? That means we're gonna be rich. Quick, call Fat Polly and let's go hijack a liquor truck now. All right. Hang on, let me tell my wife first. Hey, Fat Susan! No pizza for Fat Joey tonight, capiche? Stop calling me Fat Susan. Forget about it. Rival gangs began to battle in America's cities, raiding each other's transports, assassinating rivals, and trying to...
I know Mafia is already did this period, but I honestly, frankly, rather than making a new GTA, like this is maybe like my hot take about GTA 6, I don't care about GTA 6. You know what I want to see? I want to see a like mobster story. 1920s GTA. Give me like Red Dead Redemption 3, and it's like 1920s GTA. Like maybe the main character comes home from World War One and has to deal with it or something. I don't know. There's definitely options, I feel like.
Take control of their city's illicit booze trade. Every city had its top dog. Detroit had the Purple Gang. New England had Charles King Solomon. But no city was as infamous for gang violence and murder as Chicago. The city had multiple gang factions, and at first,
the Windy
they had their own
City.
neighborhoods. But the thing about criminals is that they're criminals, and the agreements inevitably broke down. One day, the leader of the Italian Southside gang was walking along the street when this happened. He
Yeah?
was like, you know, I think I'm done with this, and left for New York. His crime empire to his chief enforcer, none other than Al Capone.
Yep, there it
In the
is.
face in his younger years, Capone earned himself the name Scarface. Although interestingly,
I was wondering when we would get to Al Capone, because he's such a big figure during Prohibition.
he hated
Well, more of a famous figure, if anything. He was big in Chicago. Outside, he was known, obviously, but I don't know if he had that much influence outside of Chicago.
that nickname and preferred to be called Snorky. Snorky was ruthless, just like any other gang leader in America. But what set him apart from others, the reason he's become synonymous with 1920s gang warfare, is this. Most other gang leaders would try to keep a low profile because, you know, they're killing and murdering and stuff. But Capone lived for the fame and kept an extremely high public profile, frequently speaking with the media about his exploits and presenting himself as a gracious host, providing Chicago with good times. No need to thank me, fellas. I just provide the city with a valuable commodity while doing away with the competition. You mean you murder people? Whoa, who said anything about murder? I just, you know, force my rivals underground. When you do anything with the hands, it seems like you're talking about murder. Whoa, look at you with the brains. No, I just help people retire from life. So murder. Whoa! Al Snorky Capone was
I mean, yeah,
an
like...
enigma. Brutal in how he dealt with enemies, but in front of the camera, he was all smiles. One day, he'd be ordering hit after hit. The next, he'd be signing autographs in Wrigley Field. One day,
He's a really interesting figure, honestly. It's very much that the start of like the mafia man as like a media personality, you know. Obviously later on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and even into the 80s and to some degree the 90s, you get a lot of like mafia stuff as well.
he'd be bludgeoning members of his own gang with a baseball bat for conspiring against him. The next, he'd be playing Santa at a nearby parochial school. And no murder could ever be traced back to him. Just like every other criminal, he stuffed the pockets of city officials with cold, hard cash. And any who did try to oppose him sometimes found themselves being thrown down the steps of City Hall in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Problem solved. The public couldn't get enough of Capone. He quickly became a household name as people romanticized the gang life he lived. And this became a source of concern for the...
And he was actually very clever in that sense, where like Al Capone actually used a lot of very, like he generally spent a lot on charities and did a lot of like actually good work for the people of Chicago as well, which obviously only made him more popular.
People at the very top. President Hoover? What is it now, Miles? I'm busy. Well, it's just that there's a lot of crime, sir. Crime? How long's that been happening? Well, since the dawn of man, sir. What? Would you like me to blame it on the Democrats again? No, Miles, I want you to blame it on squirrels. Yes, the Democrats. Now stop wasting my time. Since having a crime lord controlling public officials and winning the hearts of the people probably wasn't a good thing, Hoover personally ordered that something be done about this Capone fellow. But before he knew it, President Hoover was also dealing with another major problem. You know him. You love him. Woman. The Prohibition era had been going on for nearly a decade, and anyone with a brain could see that it really wasn't going very well. One person with a brain was Pauline Sabin, an extremely influential and rich woman who served on
I've heard the name before.
the Republican National Committee, fundraised for Republican presidents, and had a secret wine room in her giant mansion. She initially supported...
Okay, something about having a secret wine room in your thing. Like, I kind of want a secret wine room. I don't even drink wine. I just want one. Like, I feel like that would fit with my accent, you know? Like, I have a secret wine room if you would like to see the 1950 Cabernet or whatever the heck. Cabernet isn't even that, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
but was now disgusted at the chaos it had created, and she began a new women's movement, this time not for prohibition, but against it. Being the extremely influential woman she was, her new organization gained nearly 1.5 million members within 2 years, 5 times that of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. She hated that the WCTU claimed to speak for all women, and she began calling for the repeal of the 18th Amendment. President Hoover, I helped fund your campaign, and now I want you to end prohibition. Miles, what is it I say when I'm not going to do anything? You'll look into it, sir. Oh yeah, that's right. Pauline? I'll look into it. Stephen gave speeches on the steps of Congress and helped start a growing push among the American people against prohibition. But Hoover, a prohibitionist himself, wasn't budging. Then, on the 14th of February, 1929...
Hoover is such a fascinating figure. A guy who literally, like, did the whole thing of, quote-unquote, pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps, which, as an aside, I really don't like that, I really don't like that saying. It's kind of dumb. But basically, like, he did the whole, he climbed up from nothing and then just went, well, everyone else should be able to as well. And it's like, no, buddy, that's not how it works.
Something happened that shocked the nation. Men, thought to be working for Al Capone, tricked some Irish mobsters into meeting them at a garage, thinking they were there to purchase
is this the massacre?
whiskey. Instead, the mobsters were lined up against the wall by men dressed as police, and they were shot. The Valentine's Day massacre had people outraged. It was cruel, and almost felt like American mobsters had finally crossed a line.
I want to know who took this picture. Is this like a reenactment or something?
People were sick of the violence.
As an aside, really quickly, and I know this isn't about the massacre, but like, look at the drip on all of these guys. All of them like wearing hats, long coats. They've got like a lot of variety in them. Seriously, what happened to men's fashion in the last like 20 years? I want to see stuff like this again, or just something new. Give me more variety in men's clothing, damn it. Like... I'm so sick of seeing guys walking around in like jeans and a t-shirt. Like... God.
And almost felt like American mobsters had finally crossed a line. People were sick of the violence, and in part, they blamed Prohibition for helping to create it. The pressure on Hoover to do something was steadily increasing. Fine. Miles, I want you to put a report together to see if this whole thing is working. You mean the thing where mobsters are becoming increasingly powerful and massacring each other in the streets and everyone is disregarding the law and half our public officials are corrupt and taking bribes? That thing? Yeah, I want to know if it's working or not, Miles. Stop wasting my time! Hoover continued to drag his feet on Prohibition, but after the Valentine's Day massacre, he was still determined to do one thing. He wanted Al Capone in prison. Since Capone had been so careful, the FBI were having a hard time charging him with anything, but eventually, they got him. Capone, we know you're supplying Chicago with alcohol and you've been involved in countless murders. Whoa, look at you with the crazy talk. I ain't done none of that stuff. But you're rich, right? You're damn right I am. And so where did all the money come from, Capone? All right, I'll let you in on a little secret, but you gotta promise not to tell anyone, okay? I don't pay my taxes.
Yeah.
Whoa! For all of his murdering.
Yep, that's how they got him. The IRS, baby.
The IRS finally got Capone on tax evasion. At his trial, he didn't seem too concerned though, and spent most of his time having a laugh with his lawyers. Hey Capone, I gotta know, why are you so confident you're gonna win here? Well, Your Honor, because I'm an honest man with a big heart who's passionate about working for the good of the people. And also because I threatened the entire jury's families.
Yeah.
At the last minute, the judge replaced the entire jury pool with a new one that Capone's men hadn't yet got to, and Capone was found guilty. He was sentenced to 11 years.
Which, as an aside, clever move from the judge. Like, good job, honestly.
In federal prison, the harshest penalty ever given to a tax evader. But even with Capone locked away, the violence in Chicago and other cities continued, and in response, the movement against Prohibition continued to grow. And the final nail in Prohibition's coffin came in 1929. After a decade of booming economic growth under 3 Republican presidents, the stock
there it goes, the Great Depression.
Market plummeted, and America was thrown into the grips of the Great Depression. It was an awful time. 1 out of every 5 workers, 15 million people, would lose their jobs. Half the nation's banks failed. Temporary shantytowns were built for the broken homeless in public parks.
Yep, they were called Hoover Towns, I think, or something like that.
Very few people had time to care about Prohibition. Expensive enforcement of an unenforceable law didn't seem like that big of a priority when people were having their homes repossessed and losing their life savings. And many began to argue that repealing Prohibition would create vital jobs and tax revenue for the government.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, kind of true.
Yet President Hoover doubled down. Here's that report you asked for, sir. Gimme.
Hoover was a weird character for sure, especially during the Great Depression. He just kind of went, well, just work harder. And it's like, buddy, that's not, that's...
Prohibition is great. Fantastic news. Sir, it says here Prohibition is great at undermining the rule of law in America. Miles, it says the word great. That means good. Now stop wasting my time!
Though I will say, I will defend Hoover a little bit in that, well, he definitely wasn't perfect by any means. I feel like he does get demonized maybe a little bit too much sometimes, as if he, like, never did anything good. I'm sure he did. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure he did.
Public, increasingly shocked at the violence they saw in the streets, the corruption they saw in the government, the general disregard for the law, and now an economic calamity, had enough. For his re-election, Hoover faced a Democratic candidate who promised to finally do something about prohibition, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Crowds cheered as
New
he began
Deal.
his campaign speeches promising to modify the Volstead Act, and Pauline Sabin, a lifelong Republican, along with her 1.5 million supporters, endorsed Roosevelt. And on Election Day, it was a landslide. Before FDR had even taken
It's kind of crazy to look at, like the sheer landslide victory.
office, Republicans in Congress began the process of passing the 21st Amendment to repeal Prohibition. One of FDR's first acts as president was to pass the Beer Permit Act, which made beer legal while the new amendment was being ratified. In 1933, with the passage of the 21st Amendment, Prohibition was finally over, and the people celebrated like they'd just won a world war. Bars and taverns were packed. The WCTU were inconsolable. Wayne Wheeler was dead, and the celebration,
Yeah, he died in like the 20s, I think.
particularly in America's cities, was intense. Heading into
Love this picture, by the way. Like the second guy, like standing on the table. That's a great picture. Really well composed.
the mid-1930s, the effects of Prohibition were clear to see. From now on, culture around drinking had changed, with men and women drinking together, not in saloons, but in bars and taverns. The crime syndicate,
Yeah,
that had been
exactly.
gained so much power through Prohibition, remained powerful as they moved on to other things. Some states opted to remain dry, with Oklahoma only repealing its prohibition laws in 1959. To this day, there are still counties in America with some form of prohibition.
Yeah,
What did
true.
we learn today, kids? What's the big lesson here? What's the moral of this story that we can all take away?
I want to add something that hasn't been mentioned. The speakeasy was also the origin of the cocktail, or prohibition. Well, not the origin, but it definitely popularized the cocktail, or the modern cocktail, because those colorful drinks often looked like sodas, so you could pretend they were sodas. That's also where all the like weird cocktail names come from. You know, like motor oil or whatever. That sounds like motor oil, but if you know, then you can get a drink.
And apply to our day-to-day lives. Maybe that you shouldn't force your own morals on others who don't share them. Maybe that if you tell Americans not to do something, that's the one thing they'll definitely do. Or maybe there is no lesson. Maybe we're all just a bunch of dumb, stinky idiots, and we're all doomed. The end.
That's really nihilistic, dude. No, absolutely. I disagree. I fully disagree with that. There is absolutely a lesson to be had here. And the lesson is absolutely that you shouldn't, like... I think the lesson is that you shouldn't be absolutist with these things. People will do what they want to do, right, in the end. You can't force people to do what you want them to do. You have to give them incentive. You have to make sure they want to follow along with you. Yeah, anyway, yeah, with that, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it. As always, a very special thank you to our very important planet, that is fun to say, Kane01b, the very important planets, Aku, SCP Realized, Roselandian Rose, Torpin Only, Brandon Anderson 8516, and Cool Mr. Cortez. And over on Ko-Fi, Tato, Orlandog, Reed, Eddie Cute Puppy, and Alex the DM for your support. Thank you, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye!